Husker Nation, Nebraska is a home underdog to USC. Live Saturday night. It's the blackout. National television. Matt Rhule wants it so loud that USC can't even hear themselves breathe. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but we're going to roll with it. Stay tuned for this whole video. We're going to go over keys. I'm going to give my prediction. Something I haven't done or said all year is going to take place. Will Nebraska get it done? If they can get it done, how do they get it done? Also, stay tuned to the end of the video. We bring on an expert in his field as we interview Dr. Scott Strasburger. Let's chat, shall we? Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the polls for Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net, also carrikerchronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. Ladies and gentlemen, it is just science. Now, if you're like me, and Nebraska beating USC might, just un poquito, a little bit, change how you view the Huskers season so far as definitely moving in the right direction. This seems like an obvious one, but there's going to be somebody out there, if Nebraska beats USC, that says, not good enough. I don't like what I see. But if you're like me and you think that would change how you view the season as far as moving in a positive in the right direction, smash the like button. Also, as always, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you're subscribed. And if you're so inclined, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe. Ring that notification bell. It's going to be a wild November. Going to be a wild November. You don't want to miss the stuff we're talking about here on the Carriker Chronicles. Subscribe, ring that bell. Also, if you just want to support the channel, we truly do appreciate it. The Huskers host the number 23 ranked USC Trojans in a primetime battle at Memorial Stadium. Game time is set for shortly after 6:30 p.m. with NBC providing the television coverage. Nebraska is 6-2 overall, 3-2 in the Big Ten. And just to quickly recap as we enter the month of November, 3 times in the month of October, Nebraska scored decisive points in the fourth quarter to pick up a Big Ten victory. Nebraska's 6-2 mark puts the Huskers at their best record through 8 games since the 2016 season when they started out 7-1. All right, USC will head to Lincoln with a 5-2 overall mark and a 3-1 record in the Big Ten. The Trojans were off last week, had a bye week, following a 34-24 loss at Notre Dame in South Bend. USC has posted Big Ten victories over Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue, with their only loss in league play a 2-point setback at Illinois. The Trojans feature a high-powered offense under head coach Lincoln Riley. USC is averaging 530 total yards per game and 326 pass yards to lead the nation in both categories. USC's average of 42.4 points per game is 5th in the country. Defensively, USC ranks amongst the nation's best teams in red zone defense and takeaways. Saturday night's matchup is the second as Big Ten opponents between Nebraska and USC for the two of the most iconic brands in all of college football. USC defeated Nebraska last year in Los Angeles, and the Trojans will be making their first visit to Lincoln since 2007. All right, Nebraska ranks second in the nation in passing yards allowed per game at 127.5. The Huskers have limited 7 of 8 opponents to fewer than 160 yards. Again, USC leads the nation in passing offense at 326.1 yards per game on average. Now, Nebraska ranks in the top 20 nationally in 5 special teams categories, including kickoff return, their 3rd, punt return average, their 19th, punt return defense, their 3rd, kick return defense, their 14th, and blocked kicks, their 5th in the country. Nebraska and USC will meet for the 7th time on Saturday night. USC holds a 5-0-1 advantage in the all-time series and has won both meetings played at Memorial Stadium. Now, the one time that we were tied was 1970 out at the Coliseum there in LA. The score was 21-21. Nebraska went on to win the national championship that year, but they tied number 3 USC on that particular day. Now, the Trojans, they are the only team Nebraska's played more than once and not beaten. I hate that stat. Want to see it changed. Hopefully, this weekend would be a great time to change that stat. All right, these teams met for the first time as Big Ten foes in Los Angeles last season and are also scheduled to meet in the LA Coliseum. Before last season, the previous meeting was in the 2014 Holiday Bowl. That was right after Pelini was fired. And frankly, it was also right after the birth of the Carriker Chronicles. Random fact. All right, USC was ranked in the top 5 in each of the first 4 meetings between the schools, with Nebraska ranked in 3 of those 4 seasons as well. Following a 21-21 tie in 1970, the aforementioned game that I talked about, Nebraska went on to win 23 straight games, including back-to-back national championships. Nebraska and USC both rank in the top 10 in all-time victories, with the Huskers 8th with a 930 all-time victories, and USC is 10th with 886 all-time wins. Nebraska has a strong history of success in night games at Lincoln. The Huskers are 53-11 at home in night games at Memorial Stadium. Saturday's matchup with USC is the Huskers' first November night game at Memorial Stadium since a victory over Minnesota on November 12, 2016. Saturday's primetime matchup will also feature a full stadium blackout at Memorial Stadium. We played a game in all whites this year. Yeah, I don't remember that either. All reds and now all blacks. All right, the Huskers will wear black jerseys, alternate uniforms, black pants, and white helmets with the black N and stripes. Nebraska did post a season open victory over numbers 17/16, depending on which poll you look at, Cincinnati and Kansas City. The Bearcats were unranked at game time, but are unbeaten since they lost to the Huskers. Nebraska was 0-3 against ranked opponents in 2024, 0-2 in 2023, and in 2024, Nebraska lost an overtime contest against a ranked Illinois team, lost by 4 points at eventual national champion Ohio State, and suffered a loss at college football playoff qualifier Indiana. The Huskers are looking, my point is, for their first victory over a ranked opponent since a win over number 22 Oregon in Lincoln in 2016. That's a 9-year drought they're looking to break. A victory over USC would match Nebraska's best 9-game record to start a season since an 8-1 start to the 2014 campaign. Nebraska had a 7-2 mark through 9 games in 2016. Nebraska ranked second in the nation in passing yards allowed. All right, mentioned that before. Per game at 127.5 yards per contest, but just 2.9 yards per game behind the national leader, Oregon. Nebraska ranks 4th in the nation in team passing efficiency defense with a 99.31 rating. The Huskers' opponents are completing just 57.6% of their passes, a rate that is top 25 nationally. Nebraska's 10 opponents' pass plays of 20 yards or more is tied for the national lead with Ohio State and Indiana. Nebraska is also tied for the national lead with just 3 pass plays of 30-plus yards allowed, and remains the only team in the country to not allow a pass play of 40 yards or more. Nebraska has allowed 3 touchdown passes this year, which is again tied for the national lead with the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Indiana Hoosier Daddies. All right, Nebraska is tied second in the nation offensively when it comes to completion percentage, completing 74.2% of our passes so far this year, trailing only top-ranked Ohio State, and they're completing it at an insane rate of 79.5%. If you round, that's 80%. That's crazy. I would like to stretch the field a little bit more. You want to be able to stretch the field. You want to be able to threaten people deep. Dylan Raiola is 1 of 10 of his last passes of 15 yards or more. I like the high completion percentage. Let's take care of the ball. Let's win the turnover battle. Let's complete passes. Let's move the chains. Let's not take silly chances, but let's complete more than 10% of our deep balls, so to speak, as well. Before we move on, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. They are your local retaining wall and concrete experts. I'm telling you, nobody does it better. If this is the type of work you want done, go to dpsconstruction.net. If this is the type of work that you do, Jason Armstrong is the guy, the boss, the owner that you want to work for. Again, go to dpsconstruction.net. Also, shout out to Husker Auto Group. Husker Chevrolet and GMC have aggressive pricing on 2025 model Silverados and Sierras, up to $11,000 off of MSRP. APR as low as 2.9% financing with approved credit. See dealer for details. Husker Chevrolet and GMC also has a great selection of 3/4-ton Silverado and Sierra trucks. Husker Chevrolet and GMC is locally owned and operated. Husker Auto Group is conveniently located off North 27th Street and I-80 in North Lincoln. Also available 24/7 at HuskerAutoGroup.com. Again, that's HuskerAutoGroup.com. Coming back to our passing game, let's look at Dylan a little bit more. He has completed, specifically Raiola himself, 72.8% of his passes. The 74.2 completion percentage was as a team. He's basically completing 73% of his passes, and his completion percentage ranks 6th nationally. He has completed better than 70% of his passes 11 times in his career, including 8 of the past 11 contests. Now, in October, as I mentioned before, we had 3 fourth-quarter victories: Michigan State, Maryland, Northwestern, and 2 of those, Maryland, Northwestern, including game-winning touchdown drives and game-winning touchdown throws by Dylan. The team typically starts fast, typically finishes strong, we're going to need to do more than just a typical to beat the men of Trojan, technically. The Trojans, but we'll get back to that. Emmett Johnson, 1,019 yards from scrimmage so far in 2025, making him one of only 2 players in the country to record 1,000 yards from scrimmage, and he's the only Power 4 player to do that as well. Now, Johnson is second in the Big Ten with 104.6 rushing yards per game. His 4 100 rushing yard games are the most by a Husker since Anthony Grant had 5 in 2022. Nyziah Hunter, I don't know that he's unequivocally our best receiver right now, but he leads Nebraska in 3 of, if not the 3 most major receiving categories. Nyziah Hunter, sophomore, has been Nebraska's top target as of late, leading the team with 33 catches, leading the team with 525 receiving yards, and also leading the team with 5 touchdown receptions, while averaging 15.9 yards per catch as well. As we know, our special teams, bad pun intended, they've been pretty special this year. Nebraska is on pace for its best seasons in both punt and kickoff returns in a decade, and the Huskers have also blocked 3 kicks so far this year. When it comes to some of the, I don't want to say little things, because penalties, special teams, turnovers, they're gigantic. All right, special teams is a third of the game. Turnovers and penalties can turn the tide of an entire game. Nebraska is +3 in the turnover margin. Nebraska has not had a positive turnover margin for a season since 2016. You look at the Trojans, their head coach, Lincoln Riley, his 4th year at USC has a 31-16 record, his 9th year as a head coach overall. As you probably know, he was at Oklahoma before that. 86-26 overall head coaching record. The man understands passing the ball. He understands offense. He understands coaching quarterbacks. Riley has developed 3 of the last 8 Heisman Trophy winners. That's almost 50% of them. That's crazy. And he is the only head coach to coach 3 Heisman winning quarterbacks. He is also the only head coach to have 3 players selected number 1 overall in the NFL's common draft era. Now, they're improved on defense. How physical are they in the trenches? They're better than they've been before. They run the ball better than they typically have. But when they went to Notre Dame, I'm telling you right now, they played one of the most physical teams in the country, and they got handled. Now, they're going to come in here and try to handle us. How do we handle them trying to handle us? Now, in the passing game, Jaden Maeva, which some USC people, they actually think he's a better quarterback within Lincoln Riley's system than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, a little bit more talented, but he was a free-for-all backyard quarterback. Lincoln Riley has a quarterback who plays within his system, makes great decisions, and a lot of people at USC think he's actually a better quarterback within what Lincoln Riley wants to do. He's completed 145 of 213 pass attempts for 2,180 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 4 INTs. Now you start to compare Nebraska and USC unit to unit, offense, defense, team statistically comparisons. The rushing offense, USC averages 204 rush yards a game. That's 4th best in the Big Ten. They will run the football, and I guarantee they're going to test us there because they can also pass the ball, but they want to stay balanced. If we can get them off balance and we can make them predictable, that's uber huge for Nebraska. We might need to try to make them predictable and force them to do one or the other. If they can stay balanced, we're in trouble. Conversely, our rush offense is 101st in the country. How do you have the Big Ten's leading rusher, but you're 101st in the country when it comes to rushing as a team? Well, sack yardage is a huge reason why. Also, we used to have a 3-man battle for the backup running back gig. Now it's really one guy only. It's Isaiah Mosey, and I think he only got 2 carries in the last game. So Emmett is the man. He may be the best running back. He may be the best player on this team, best running back in the Big Ten, but it's really Emmett, which is fine. But when it comes to a team, we're 101st in the country when it comes to rushing yards, averaging 129 yards a game. When it comes to passing offense, mentioned it before, USC is number 1 in the country passing offense and total offense. Our passing offense is top 25, 25th in the country. When it comes to scoring offense, they are 2nd. The Trojans are in the country. We're 31st. When it comes to pass defense, again, we are 2nd in the country. We've been number 1 for most of the season. Total defense, we are 12th in the country. I don't think that's talked about enough. Scoring defense, we have the same exact scoring defense rank as we do scoring offense rank. They're both 31st in the country. I just thought that was interesting. Red zone defense, don't like this. They're number 2 in the country. We're 125th in the country. That's something that's got to frickin' flip if we're going to win this game. When it comes to special teams, this is the one area of the game where I feel we have a decided advantage. And that in this, a third of the game needs to be a decided advantage throughout the game on Saturday night. You look at kickoff returns, we're 1st in the Big Ten. They're 100th nationally. We're 3rd nationally. When it comes to kickoff return defense, they're 129th nationally. Kenneth Williams got to be licking his chops right now. When it comes to penalty yards, they're not very disciplined. They're 3rd worst in the entire Big Ten when it comes to penalties and penalty yards. Hopefully that's something that Nebraska can take advantage of. One thing to keep an eye on. There was 3 different starters along the defensive line the second half versus Northwestern. I'm curious to see who starts on Saturday. Is it Elijah Judy, Cam Lenhart, Keona Davis? Is it somebody else? Because there was 3 other guys that started. That is, you look at the depth chart here. I circled it for a reason. There was 3 other guys that started the second half of the Northwestern game. Whoever it is, you got to ball out and you got to play well, and that's all I know. All right, let's dive into a couple other things real quick before I get my keys and prediction to the game. Malcolm Hartzog's going to redshirt. He could, in theory, play in the bowl game. Remember, he had the play of the game versus Cincinnati, the game-clinching interception. He could redshirt. That means it's almost like he didn't play this year, and he could play in the bowl game, and he has one of the most key plays of the entire season. Imagine if we lose to Cincinnati. That's crazy to me. You look at some of the Big Ten power rankings. We're going to play 2 of the top teams. Now, I will say USC should be ahead of Michigan because USC thumped Michigan. But USC and Iowa are ahead of us our last 4 games. Penn State and UCLA are behind us. So we'll see how November turns out. I think we should run this formation. Where is that tight end lined up and what is going on? It's kind of like, was it Michigan State that Nebraska played in volleyball? They had 7 girls on the court. And when Danny Busboom asked the ref about it, they go, it's just a verbal warning. Hey, you know what? If that's how it is, and we need a big play versus USC, just sneak a 12th guy on the field. Maybe we'll get a verbal warning. All right, before we move on, I want to give one more shout out to another sponsor. I want to shout out Allen Capital Group. If you're searching for a financial planner who is rooted in Nebraska values, Allen Capital Group is a homegrown Nebraska business with offices in Grand Island, Ogallala, Scottsbluff, and Omaha. They will work to understand what is meaningful to your financial needs, wants, and wishes. They've personally helped my family and myself navigate our finances for over a decade. They're knowledgeable, they're genuinely caring, and they're good human beings who know what they're doing. They're going to take care of you and do a good job. Check out their website at allencapgroup.com. That's ALLENCAP group.com for more information. Allen Capital Group, next level solution for next level needs. One of the most unique stories in college football. I've seen this multiple times, and I thought about not putting it in because I'd seen it multiple times, but it's just got me so enamored. Drew Mestemaker never started a varsity game at quarterback in high school, was a 0-star recruit, and decided to walk on at North Texas. The freshman now leads the country in passing, just threw for a school record 608 yards and has the mean green 7-1. Now, Chris Raff sent this to me. The heavens are throwing the bones like Adam Carriker. If we beat USC Saturday night, the heavens just might be throwing the bones. What is going on in Colorado? I knew it was about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. This is the halftime stats from last Saturday. Utah, 398 total yards, Colorado minus 18. Rush yards, Utah 260, Colorado minus 41. Whoa. I almost feel sorry for him. So I talked earlier in the show about Emmett Johnson and his all-purpose yards, right, leading the Big Ten. But Emmett also forced 10 missed tackles against Northwestern, which was the most of any running back in the country last week. That's craziness. All right, when you look at Husker punt returns, from 2021 to 2024, there was 46 total punt returns for 225 total yards over 4 seasons. In 8 games so far this year, Nebraska has 20 returns for 288 yards. That's more through 8 games than 4 freaking years combined. All right, those same 4 years, when it came to punting and punt coverage unit, on average, there was 18 returns for 176 yards in totality, I should say. In 2025, teams have only returned 3 punts on us for a total of 1 yard. That is a total net return of plus 1/3 yard each time they just even try to do it. All right, let's get into the keys and my prediction, but here's one more thing. Nebraska scored 14 points on turnovers and had a special teams touchdown versus Northwestern. It might not be pretty football so far, ladies and gentlemen, but when was the last time we could say something like that after a game, let alone a win? Also, Nebraska has the 5th leading rusher, Emmett Johnson, in the entire country. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into my keys and prediction. Do the bad guys win or the good guys? USC's a 6.5 point favorite as I sit right here, right now, recording this show. The over-under is 59.5 for the game. I got 5 keys. Every week is different. This week is 5. Number 1, Nebraska's got to start fast. Think back to the Michigan game. The crowd was ready to erupt. You could feel the electricity in the air, and it just never happened. Why? Because Nebraska fell behind 10-0. Because we had 2 possessions that went into scoring position, and we walked away with 0 points. We got to start fast, get the crowd into the game, an electrifying atmosphere. There's also a little bit, if we're being honest, a little bit of mental fragility if we fall behind. We don't want that, oh no, here we go again feeling. Nebraska's got to start fast. Number 2, we got to out-execute them. Okay, we're not going to out-athlete them. Now, we can match their athleticism in the skill position area. I do believe that, but we can't afford mistakes, miscommunications, blown assignments. We can't have free blitzers to our quarterback. We can't have unblocked guys. We can't have, and our defense has been really good about this, but no blown coverages, easy touchdowns. We've got to out-execute them, out-assign them, out-communicate them. And if you're going to do that, you got to play 4 full quarters. You can't disappear for the second and third quarter. You got to play 4 full quarters. No unblocked defenders, no blown coverages, no losing leverage on contain. Northwestern, their running back popped outside in a short yardage situation for a long, cheap touchdown. None of that, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if you're going to out-execute them, you got to play 4 full quarters of football. Number 3, match them in the trenches. Again, this is a little bit more of a physical USC team than Lincoln Riley's had since he got there, but it's not uber physical. Watch that Notre Dame film. I'm not saying we have an advantage here. What I'm saying is just can we at least frickin' match them in the trenches on the O-line and D-line. Number 4, win the little things. Special teams, turnovers, penalties. I believe we have the advantage in all 3 of those areas. Can we get a short field for our offense? Can we score a touchdown on defense? Can we take advantage of them not being an incredibly disciplined team as an overall whole? How we win this game, we get our offense extra possessions. We keep it 1st and 10, not 1st and 15, not 1st and 20 when we do have the ball. Out-discipline them and beat them in the little things. And last but certainly not least, I was going to say the nation's top passing offense versus the nation's pretty much been the number 1 pass defense most of the season. No. That's the most intriguing matchup, but who scores points in the red zone? They're going to move the ball. We're going to move the ball. Who, when they get in the red zone, gets 7 points versus 3? Who, when they get close to scoring, gets 3 points versus 0? Who moves the ball but actually walks away with points? We can't afford to leave points on the field. We need to play like we're the number 2 red zone defense in the country, and they're the 125th red zone defense in the country. My official prediction. All right. First time all year. Nebraska's only been an underdog twice this year. Michigan and USC. So it's pretty easy most weeks, to be honest with you. Not always. I was worried about Maryland and whatever. The bad guys 35, the good guys 27. To be clear, the bad guys is USC, the good guys is Nebraska, and they're the bad guys instead of the other guys this week because I have them winning. I want so bad to be wrong. I want Nebraska to win. I just can't sit here and pick Nebraska to beat USC until I see more of the things I just talked about on a consistent basis. I hope I'm talking about a win in my gut reaction after the game, and I hope I'm flat out wrong. But for now, for the first time all year, I gotta pick the bad guys. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for that interview with Dr. Scott Strasburger. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I want to bring on our special guest. He's joined us before. He'll join us again, I'm sure. He's a Nebraska Football Hall of Famer, NFL draft pick, 2-time All-Big 8 performer as a fellow defensive lineman as well. And maybe even most importantly, pertaining to what he does now, a 2-time academic All-American, Dr. Scott Strasburger. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Adam. I'm doing well. Good to see you again today.
It's good to see you as well. Got a big game, USC coming up this weekend. All right, Nebraska is a little bit beat up on the offensive line. As you get into like game 8, 9 this weekend, the last third of the season, you're going to have guys who are battling injuries, guys who are just banged up in general. What are some of the things that they can do to try to get back on the field if they're hurt or try to get feeling better if they're just banged up?
You know, depending on the source of their injury or their complaints, there's a lot of different things they can try. We've talked about this repeatedly. The important thing getting to this time of year is what you do leading up to this time of year. You have to maintain your conditioning. You have to maintain your weight training. You got to maintain your ability to continue to go out there and perform and protect yourself. Being able to protect yourself is probably the most important thing that we deal with this time of year. The problem this time of year, all these little nagging injuries add up. People can start to get fatigued. And like we've talked about before, when you get to the end of a halftime or the end of the game, people get tired. And when people get tired, they get hurt.
Talk to me about the defensive line. We're both former defensive linemen. And our defensive line this year is a little bit younger, a little bit smaller, a little bit undersized. I can't wait to see how they keep progressing and improving. But when they're going against big, gigantic Big Ten offensive line, like Minnesota was 319 pounds across the board, and we've faced bigger lines than that throughout the course of this year. How does that kind of add up over time if you are maybe a little bit undersized as an individual player or a position group?
One of the things is your exposure to injury. And when you're going up against these bigger, stronger guys, that's going to give you a greater chance to be exposed to something, get yourself in a position because you're being handled a little bit differently to make yourself susceptible to an injury. So, again, these guys just got to maintain their physicality. They got to maintain their conditioning, their strength to help protect themselves and help prevent these injuries. But some of these, you just get the wrong person in the wrong position. Some of them are unavoidable and they happen.
So I got a little bit more of a football question for you. Trying to improve the run defense, not quite where we want it to be this year. That's tackling, but it's also being gap sound, and that starts up front. What have you seen from the defensive line as far as, maintaining their gaps, maybe get knocked out a little bit more than we would like up front, not being quite gap sound, which then puts the second level of the defense a little bit of a more stressful situation. And then if the running back breaks there, it's a safety and a whole lot of space and a guy who can make people miss. But what have you seen as far as the defensive line being gap sound or not so far this year?
Talk with Chuck Mazurski quite often, and Chuck and I talked this week about our run defense, and it's been obvious we haven't been able to cover the A and B gap quite often, and we're giving up some long run opportunities right up the middle, and those quick hitters are difficult to defend. Those guys get in the secondary, and then all of a sudden you have a one-on-one tackling situation. So we do need to be able to cover the inside of the line better. We're a smaller defensive line. We have to improve our technique. And sometimes it gets to a point where we just have to take chances to shut off those inside gaps and give ourselves a chance. We need to make second and third and long more often, and we just haven't gotten to second and third and long very often the last couple of weeks.
So I think I know what you're talking about, but when you say chances, what are you exactly referring to there?
We need to be better on first down, and we're giving up too many yards on first down. We're putting them in second and short, third and short, which are easy to convert. So taking chances mean putting the guys in the gap, shooting gaps, taking away the A and B gaps, putting a little bit more pressure on our linebackers to make solid run tackles, but probably looking at chance-wise, blitzing a little bit more, gap blitzing to get in the backfield and take away those quick hitters.
It's kind of what I thought you were referring to: stunting, blitzing, attacking, getting downhill, using speed, oversized to our advantage. Now, we talked about 8 games into the season. There's a third of the season left. If you're a playoff team, which Nebraska, I've refused to talk about that. If they beat USC, we can discuss it. At some point we'd like to be. But if you're a playoff team, you can play upwards of 17 games. We'd be halfway through the season if we were one of those teams going all the way to the national title game through a 12-team playoff, a conference championship game, 12-game regular season. So let's talk about it from maybe a coaching perspective. Like, how do coaches tend to alter practices this time of year? What advice are trainers and doctors maybe giving them? Like, hey, this is how you stay physical, but also you don't beat up your team this time of year as well.
Well, Adam, you and I both know there was a time where we went full pads at least twice a week. Yeah. And we went ones on one, 14 to 21 plays every Wednesday. And it didn't matter who our opponent was, maybe the last week or two of the season. But the coaches have to adjust now. We do not have the depth. No one has the depth anymore. We used to be able to, sustain 4 or 5 injuries on the offensive line, and our second line would step in and there would almost be no drop off. But the experience and the depth just doesn't exist anymore. So the coaches are having to back off and make practices easy, not as much contact, not as much tackling. And, that's how you keep people healthy and ready to play. But you also don't get that much good preparation if you're not taking players down to the ground during the week.
That's a fair point with NIL, the transfer portal. A second string guy is not going to stay at Bama. He's going to go to Ole Miss. You don't have that depth across the board. You're playing more games. You're playing tougher competition, I would say, the Big Ten and SEC than like the Big 12 and ACC, with all due respect there. This was another question I've been wanting to ask you for a while, because you hear about the fourth quarter, strength and conditioning, the tougher team, the more physical team is going to win in the fourth quarter. You and I know a lot of that's physical. Part of that's mental. When it comes to fourth quarter teams and who the better team is in the fourth quarter, how much of that, in your opinion, as a doctor, is physical being worn down, but mentally you can get worn down or you can be stronger than your opponent too? What do you think the ratio is there?
It's probably pretty equal. You see great teams. Let's go back to the Miami, Nebraska Orange Bowl. You talk about how dogmatic we were at running the ball. We're down in the fourth quarter, and what do we keep doing? We keep running the ball, and at the end of the fourth quarter, you're looking at the Miami defensive line, and they can't even get off the ground. I think that was probably equal strengths of mental strength and physical strength. Nowadays, you don't have the opportunity to prepare as much for that fourth quarter in practice. So the mental aspects of it are very important. And that's probably things that are preached a lot more now than they used to be.
I remember as a kid watching that game, the first quarter, Miami they would like get an interception. They'd take their helmet off. They had the do-rags. They were running around the sideline. And to your point, in the fourth quarter, they were on a knee, just staring at the ground, could barely breathe. I will never forget that juxtaposition throughout the 4 quarters of the game and how different it was. So we bring our kids to you. Like you just saw my daughter, Jordan. She banged up her finger pretty good. All right, she's been going nuts, by the way. She hates standing during practices. She's like, I want to scrimmage. I don't want to dribble left-handed because it's her right hand all day. I'm like, you're going to be the best left-handed dribbler you've ever seen. She can't wait to start practicing again. But what are some things that youth sports parents can do? Because you've got people who love their kids. They've got them in club soccer, club basketball, club softball, club whatever. How do you give your kids the opportunity to play as much as they possibly can without wearing them out too?
It's interesting you bring that up. We just operated on my daughter last week, and the same thing as with your daughter is they have to recover, but we need to keep them engaged. We have to find them something they can do while they're recovering, just like dribbling with the other hand. We need to find something they can do on the field or on the court to keep them engaged. I love them continuing to go to practice, but when they go to practice, we got to figure out things that they can do at practice to maintain that engagement.
What are some of the things that you would advise when it comes to parents who may be concerned, am I having my kid do too much? Can they do more? I want them to have as much fun as possible, but and over time, does it stay fun? Does it kind of lose its fun and become more work? What's your advice to parents along those lines?
It's interesting. The NFL did some research, and in the first 2 rounds of the draft, almost all those athletes were playing more than one sport. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that maybe we've lost focus on. I think we need kids to be a little bit more active in more than one sport. Volleyball, baseball, sometimes that's dominating the kids' athletic participation for the entire calendar year. So I think a little bit of variety allows them to grow as athletes in a little bit different way. So maybe, focus on more than one sport like a lot of families are doing right now.
I think that's a great point. The last time I saw it, the first round of the NFL draft, of the 32 first-round picks, 27 of them were multi-sport athletes in high school, and a majority were 3-sport athletes, which is hard to do in today's day and age. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got some questions for you fine folks. Let me know your answers in the comments below. These questions are brought to you by Husker Auto Group. Check them out at HuskerAutoGroup.com. Also, you can check out Dr. Strasburger, Sagewell Orthopaedics. You can call them 402-466-0100 or check them out 7350 Willowbrook Lane. All right, Suite 102 in Lincoln, Nebraska. Here are my questions. All right, number 1, what's your single biggest key to Nebraska beating USC? Number 2, what's your score prediction? And number 3, Emmett Johnson's the Big Ten leading rusher, top 5 rusher in the country, the only Big Ten player to eclipse 1,000 all-purpose yards this year. My question is, will he rush for 100 yards or more versus the Trojans on Saturday? All right, Doc, you want to throw the bones with me again?
Let's do it, Adam.
All right, until next time, go Big Red Nose. Remember to throw the bone.